Over a year and a half ago, I visited my brother-in-law in Kansas, and we went thrifting through this big 2-story, dirty architectural salvage store, and it was hot. It was the middle of July. It was sweaty. It was gross. But they had neat stuff. Upstairs in a far corner, I found this violin. I carried it around with me the entire time I shopped. At one point, Mike said, "What are you going to do with that?" Then on my way to check out, I thought, what the heck am I going to do with this? It's overpriced, broken, missing pieces, and besides, I paint furniture. I don't paint violins. All through the next year, all I could think about was that violin. It's like, I needed that violin. Why didn't I get that violin? My dad told me a story years ago about when he was a kid and was in high school in a little town in southeast Kansas. Population probably 1,000, 2,000 max. And apparently a former graduate from this high school had gone on to Juilliard and become a famous violinist. And so she was back at the high school one day when they were playing in orchestra. And my dad apparently played a violin and listened to them a while and said, "Young man, someday you are going to be a famous concert violinist." So on the way home from school, my dad stopped by the pawn shop in downtown and traded his violin in on a trumpet. I can't imagine that he played a violin, but he certainly didn't pass it on. I played a clarinet in high school band, and my German Shepherd howled the entire time I practiced. That dumb violin haunted me for a year. The next summer I went back to visit Mike, and I said, we have to go by the architectural salvage place and see if that violin is still there. There it sat like an ugly puppy with an underbite that nobody wanted at the pound. And next to it, there was a violin in better shape, but it had a higher price tag. For gosh sakes, you're not going to play the thing, you're going to paint it, I thought. So I grabbed the one I'd originally come back for, and I brought it home. It sat in the corner of my painting studio for 6 months. So Pinterest, here I come. I start looking at all these things and things you can do with violins. It's got to be a piece of art. It's obviously not playable, and I'm not a musician. Even though my Pinterest board was growing, I still wasn't sure what I was going to do with it. Then 2 things happened. I started retailing Iron Orchid Designs products in my booth at the Picker Nose. In Kara's Color Me Creative Artists in the Making private group, she had given us a challenge that month for black and white. Do black and white your way. I don't do black and white. I do color. Flipping with color, get it? Flipping white. So I decided, okay, I would do this violin and I would make it black and white. First, I cleaned the violin and painted it with a coat of black velvet. Debi Beard made this awesome anthropology knockoff with IOD mold. It was beautiful. I had IOD molds. I can't tell you which ones I used. There are like, I have every one they make. I have every single one they make. Flies, I don't think we used butterflies. Roses, there was roses on it. Flowers, there were wings. Then I painstakingly took each mold after I had made it and glued it with wood glue, spread it with wood glue on the back, and placed it on the violin. And I started working in shapes and filling the spaces and looking at what mold would next fit best. It was like working a jigsaw puzzle. It was crazy, but it was fun. Once the molds were in place, I covered them all again with another coat of black velvet. It took several tries to get in all the nooks and crannies of each of the molds. Every time I'd paint the piece and I'd let it dry and I'd come back to it the next day or in an hour and I'd see these little specks of white showing through. And so I'd have to dab again and I'd dab more black paint in until the thing was just solid black on top of the black. So first I put a coat of clear wax over the black violin with the molds. I took a lot of white wax with my wax brush and I just crammed it in every spot in that violin. And then I took a lint-free blue rag and wiped it back, and wiped the tops back so that the black would show through on the tops of all the molds. And it took several times of going back over and burnishing it off again. Then I'd take too much and I'd have to go back with more white wax and add more and then take it off again with the cloth until it was just right. So finally, the violin was done. I had a project to put in Kara's challenge. I did black and white. And I couldn't help but wonder if that little violin that I had picked up in southeast Kansas. Do you think it could have been the violin my dad had and traded in at the pawn shop back in the 1940s? It was really old and really dinged up and ugly, and it wouldn't have traveled far. Do you really think it could have been his violin?